I was just wrapping up the follow-up piece to that crazy invitation that I'm going to show you in just a minute. Just a little note card, thank you card to follow up on the event. The client's coming to pick that up right now. Honestly, it took me way longer than I anticipated today, only because I wasn't able to print one part of it the way I had wanted to. The envelopes didn't work on the windmill the way I had hoped, so I had to resurrect the old Kluge for today, and that wasn't the easiest thing in the world. But it is late today, so I'm going to come back and show you that crazy invitation. Okay, so my client is a friend of mine. So my client is my friend who owns an agency whose client, the client, is DeCurtis. And DeCurtis is a technology partner for cruise line companies. You know, the kind that when you say, what kind of cruise did you go on? Those names, that's the people that they work for. And this year for Sea Trade Miami, the trade show, you know, there's a trade show for everything. The trade show for the cruise line industry, instead of hosting their own big booth and putting the money in that investment and waiting for people to walk by, they decided to host a happy hour for all of their key partners and clients and prospects. And so today, well, tomorrow when you're watching this, tonight is that event. And so we needed to create an invitation for that event that's going, honestly, to the C-suites of some of the biggest, the biggest cruise line companies in the world. And so it had to really fit them. So we wanted to go all in on this happy hour. And one of the things that my friend Bart and I talked about was the idea of seeing if we could activate all of the senses on this invitation. We got them all except for taste. You know, we thought about like putting chocolate or something in there, and it was all too obvious. So I think we even kind of covered that too. So let me tell you about this invitation. So we wanted them to come, well, I can't get over that. We wanted them to come in a nondescript box. We wanted the moment of unveiling to feel like a surprise. We wanted the impact of that. And you know, sometimes I think it makes a lot of sense to make the outside packaging super powerful. I think for a lot of people it does. But typically that is often when they're already expecting something. I think sometimes the power when they're not expecting something and a box shows up, and you know these are places of business where they get boxes all the time. And so I liked the idea of it being a plain box, and we even set the invitation in the box in a way that they had to pick it up. Actually, it was tilted down, so they had to pick it up, and when they picked it up to read it, it made that sound. The reason it makes the sound, by the way, this is a cruise line industry. This is essentially what you know, if in elementary school you might have played with ocean drums. This is an ocean drum. It's just supposed to sound like, you know, the crashing of waves to give that cruise feel. So we got sound right out of the gate. Obviously we've got sight, but we've also got things like touch. So we have here, you can read that, it says designing moments, and that's embossed. By the way, embossing, that means raised surface. Debossing is not a word. Essentially, it's blind letterpress hit. It's not a word. This requires two separate pieces. It requires a die with hollow areas and a counter that pushes into those hollow areas. So anyway, we did that. We also did this wax seal in off-white with their logo on it. We didn't want to seal the invitation with it because if we did that, they'd have to rip this in order to open it. So we didn't do that. So once they opened it, this is what they got. And I think it's important to note, this is 100% paper. There's no, you know, MDF or anything like that in there. I'll show you the construction in a minute, but in this particular case, This is all paper. There are no unconventional materials in here at all. Well, there's a little bit of wood, but other than that, this is stacked Savoy 236 pound. There's like something like 17 different sheets of paper in there that make up that stack. So the clients opened it, and some clients, depending on the relationship, some of them we had a contact for, and so they got a signed letter specifically for them. Some of them got this letter. This is also one for the people to hand out at the trade show for a couple of VIPs that they encounter that just weren't on the list. They'll have an opportunity to invite them and give them the same experience. So I mentioned senses earlier. Obviously we have sound and sight. We also have touch because the textures like embossing and letterpress in here. But we also do have taste and smell. You can't smell this, but there's actually a scent packed into here. I'll tell you more about that in a second. And we'll get to taste as well. So you can take this invitation out, and when you do, you'll turn it over and see that it actually fits right back in as a quote. The quote is, "Sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory." It's a great Dr. Seuss quote. And this can actually sit as, as a decorative piece. And it's something, I envision that some people will actually cut the wings off of this and sit it somewhere as its own, mantelpiece or bookshelf piece. So this is the invitation here. We did this in wood to evoke, the mahoganies and walnuts that the cruise ships will use in trim of their ships. So we wanted to give that feeling with the invitation for the event on Tuesday night. And on the back side is an invitation actually to come to the partner booths, because DeCurtis has a presence at 3 of their partner booths. So we put that on the back there, and you'll notice that is that's pretty crazy thick as well. That's 2.5 sheets of double thick paper, so like 5x thick, I guess you'd say. And then we hit taste with this. This is actually a special cocktail menu we did for happy hour with the South Florida Sunset Margarita, the Sea Trade Mojito, and the Meat Market wine selection. It's stuff we picked out specifically for this event. Now, I mentioned that scent is a part of it as well. So this is what the construction of this thing looks like on the inside. I took the same die that I used to cut out the front panel, to cut out this piece right here. I took that die and I cut a bunch of the blank sheets in the middle and left this chamber. And on top of this chamber, we glued this piece. This chamber is big enough to put beads in, but we also scraped in some wax from a particular ocean-scented candle. And when the beads roll around in this chamber, they activate the wax. So once we put the beads and the wax in here, we stacked this on and then built the rest of the invitation on top of that. The 4x6 cutout for the main invitation, then the 5x7 cutout for the front panel. And there you have a pretty killer invitation that hits all 5 senses. Thankfully, we didn't do the 6th sense because I don't want to see dead people at this event. But we covered all 5 senses and made something that I think is going to make for a pretty impactful piece. Now, here's something really cool about this piece that you don't really capture in the images of it itself. Bart and I worked really hard to build a message that talks about what this particular company does. You can look up the actual technical things that they do, but what they really do is help cruise lines create memories for their passengers. A lot of their stuff is data driven, but in the end, one of the things that it does is it allows the cataloging of moments to create lifetime memories for their guests. And so we wanted to make sure that all of the messaging, from designing moments to this great quote by Dr. Seuss, we wanted it all to really reflect this idea that they are creating memories through specific moments. And so not only is this like an impactful piece just from the physicality of it, but there's real emotion here. It really talks to kind of the core of what this company does, and that's really what it's all about. A high impact visual piece like this doesn't really do much if it doesn't actually say what it needs to say, if it doesn't tug at heartstrings. And I think we did a really great job with that. So that's the DeCurtis invitation. It is one that I am incredibly proud to be able to share with you. The thank you cards actually went with the staff to the event this week so that they can be writing them right there on the spot, getting them ready to send out, thanking people for engaging with a really cool company. You're probably wondering how much a project like this costs. What I can say safely is that depending on your quantity, it would not be unheard of for you to spend $100 to $200 each on a project like that. It just depends on how many you're getting. With a lot of print projects, there is an economy of scale that helps a ton. And so, when you're setting something up on press, it costs so much to make one and not a whole lot more to run 2 or 10 or 50 or 100 or whatever. In this case, there's so much handwork involved. All that gluing couldn't be done on a machine because you couldn't glue into the holes that I had created. So everything was spray glued and mounted. Everything was done by hand. And so it took a really long time, and you lose that economy of scale. And so there is a range, a pretty broad range, but you wouldn't find the same discounts at quantity for a project like this that you would if it was just print work, because there's just so much handwork involved. But honestly, I'm just excited to see the impact this makes on this company. Oh, and I think I forgot to mention one of the coolest parts. That candle that you saw me putting inside the invitation so the beads would activate the scent, they burned that candle at the happy hour. And so we just created another touch point, another way of activating the memories of those moments. The reality is I try to create stationery that doesn't get thrown away. I can't guarantee that it won't, though. What I can guarantee is that you'll have memories of receiving that stationery that you could never throw away. It's powerful stuff when it works, and I think it worked really well this time. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe now. I'm not going to ask you to do notifications unless that's your thing, in which case, go ahead and do it. And if you're not following me on Instagram, do that. I'm live most weekdays on Instagram, and I would love to hang out with you there. Until next time, I'll see you later.